It changes everything. And through the years, and we're going to hear some stories in a minute from the trainers about how they've used it and the miraculous outcomes they've had. And I have a whole case study book I could write about and the miraculous outcomes when we do this work first. And when I say miracle, what I mean is facilitating a result that I could not have facilitated going directly into the arena of the conflict. I could not facilitate this outcome that's coming up had I just sat down with Maxine and talked through the issues. It wasn't going to happen. So that's the miracle, and those are the miracles we are going to create. And then this witness part of you really also operates in the intellectual arena. It's stepping back, it's making note, oh, here's what I'm thinking. Oh, look at me thinking I can't do that, or that person's bad, or look at me being judgmental. Oh, look at all that deep anxiety that's in my solar plexus. Oh, listen, there's that intuition. There's that intuition telling me what to do. So it has the witness part of you, the observer, whichever, has the ability to inspire you to make those different decisions. And when you know what decisions that you should be making, doesn't guarantee that you're going to make them, but it's a much easier step to be inspired to make those decisions. So, with all that said, I am going to share my conflict, and my conflict is called assumptions and miscommunications, and trust me, this is going to be an epic conflict for the rest of my life because I learned so much in that one conflict. I'm kind of sad because the one I was originally going to do was a woman I was coaching with a miraculous outcome, but she named hers tiptoeing through the minefields of Facebook. And I thought, okay, raise your hand if you've never been triggered by something somebody said on Facebook. Of course, no one in the whole world has their hand up. So we're going to focus on this and then bring on Robin and Cathy in a minute. What happened was I was coaching Maxine on one-to-one conflict resolution. And here's just a little thing, is that I learned a long time ago that when I coach, I need to have my own conflict that I'm also focused on because I am going to get triggered. Somewhere along the way, it's a good 75% chance that when I coach someone, I will get triggered. And I learned this the first time when Teresa McMillan, one of the co-founders and my co-authors and dear friend, years ago, she finally decided to use conflict resolution to address her migraines, which were frequent and horrible. And she asked me, would I help coach her? And so we called her conflict the Headache Project. And quickly, I discovered that I was being triggered by my sister. And my sister and I had a lifelong conflict, and she really gave me a headache. So I could call it the Headache Project, and we could kind of get a twofer. So this is kind of what happened with Maxine. So Maxine runs this massage therapy business, and because of some limitations that she's going through right now, she can't do the massages. So her revenue is dependent upon the massage therapists who work through her office. She gets a cut of that. So what we were doing the training, and she had this active conflict, and so she understood that she was working to learn how to make decisions for the good of the whole. Maxine arranged for her massage therapist, Judy, to have a reading with me. So I gave Judy a big discount and I said, phone or Skype. And she said, I want to come in person. Well, I don't do many readings in person anymore. I don't think it's really necessary, but I honored it because she was Maxine's friend. So we made this appointment, and the only time that we could do it was if she came where I was staying at 4 o'clock, and we were done by 5:30 because my hostess was coming home and there was no privacy in the place in order to do the reading. So that was it. Well, at 10 o'clock that morning of the reading, Maxine got a request for a massage that afternoon that would have put Judy to my place at 4:30 or 5. So she texted me and said, can you move the reading? Can she get there at 5? And I said, you know what, I can't, but I can do it by phone. And I thought, understanding what was going on, that they would definitely take the walk-in traffic and we could reschedule by phone. That would, in my mind, was what was for the good of the whole. And so I said, just have her call me. We'll reschedule. We'll do it by phone. It's no big deal. Well, I didn't hear from anyone. And I just assumed that that's what they did because money was the big trigger and she needed money and they all needed money. So yeah, get money. Let's be abundant. Great. This is wonderful. So I changed my plans. And at 4 o'clock, I was walking out the door and here's this woman walking up and down the sidewalk. I was like, uh-oh. Huh. So, yep, turned out to be Judy. Judy was right on time, kind of early, in fact. And I got triggered in that moment. But I told her I thought you guys had canceled. And she's like, no. So we went upstairs. I did the reading. And when I asked what she wanted from the reading, she didn't seem as if she was in any great emotional distress. She just wanted to see what channeling was. And that kind of triggered me a little bit, like I was on display of some kind. But it was a beautiful reading, and I did do my quick revolution and really enjoyed the reading with her, and she was buoyed by it. So later that night, I get this email from Maxine, and she's kind of pissed. She said, why could you not have moved Judy's appointment to 5? I just lost $80. So how is that good for the whole? Okay, so that's my conflict. And right now, I want to bring on Robin Cordova, who is also going to share some of her work and her conflict. And then we're going to do ours together, and then we're going to bring Cathy on, and she's going to also share. But good morning, Robin. How are you today?
Good morning, Barbara. I'm great, thank you.
Well, I just want to ask you a question before we get into your conflict. How do you experience the witness? I feel, when I do my witness, I feel a bit schizophrenic, I'll say, because I feel like I have two voices in my head. But I'm okay with it because I know what it is. But how do you experience a witness?
Oh, that's a good visual. I experience it almost like a healthy split, and know that part of me is splitting off to step outside of myself and pay attention to what's happening around me, listening to my thoughts and my feelings. And so I try to make sure and ground myself as well.
Ah, good idea. And how do you ground?
I ground using that circle visualization that you explained in the opening. I find that to be the most powerful thing when I feel a little bit off center or a little bit woozy from becoming a witness, is I ground with that circle meditation that you guided us through at the beginning.
Ah, great. Well, what conflict are you bringing?
Yes, so a longtime coworker and I, somebody that I've been working with for about 15 years, and we live in different states. So when we work together, most of our contact is via phone. Sometimes we'll be in person together, but primarily it's via phone. And what we do is we architect and sell mission critical computer systems, and often our projects take months at a time. They're often difficult. There's a lot of obstacles, and in my opinion, the only way to get through these is to be very optimistic, to have perseverance, to be grateful for things that are going well, to stay focused and hopeful, and work towards solutions, because that's the only way we're going to get through. And we were going through a period of time, about a year, where things weren't going very well. We had a corporate customer where the systems were crashing a lot, and when systems crash and corporations are losing millions of dollars every minute, it can become quite stressful. And when we get on the phone, instead of trying to focus on what went well and how can we solve this problem, he just wanted to rant and complain and rage and express his frustration and things that were out of his control. And often, especially during this period where we were going through a difficult time, we'd always we were talking daily, and he'd often spend an extra 20 minutes on the phone with me beyond the purpose of the call, just to dump all of his negative emotions on me. And I'd end up switching into this coaching rescue mode. And there's a difference between coaching and rescuing. Coaching is a healthy function, rescuing is an unhealthy function. So I was finding myself in that unhealthy function of trying to rescue him and bring him back up emotionally and take on more than my responsibility and try to fix things and make it okay. And so I'd hang up zapped of energy.
Sounds
and
like
I'll go into the emotion when we're ready for that part, because there was a lot of that too.
Did you name your conflict?
I did, and the name of the conflict is Mr. Downer.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so we've got your Mr. Downer, we've got my assumptions and miscommunications, and we've laid them out. And for those of you who are doing this along at home, you can start to see as we move forward what we're going to do with all of this information. We're going to identify the 3 human dimensions within the conflict. It doesn't matter really where you start putting together this little matrix. This is going to be your action plan when you get done. You can start in intellect, you can start in emotion. I wouldn't suggest starting in intuition, because intuition is kind of hard sometimes, especially if you have an active conflict and you have all these emotions and thoughts going on. It's kind of hard to winnow out what intuitive message is. So I'm going to start with the intellectual sound bites. And the reason that we create these sound bites is, as I said before, the imagination and the intellect can run crazy wild all over you, and you get lost in it. So we're trying to pare down the whole entire story of the conflict into 1 or 2 sentences about what is really bugging you here. What is the root of this problem with Mr. Downer? What was my problem with Maxine? And you get them so they're small, so A, you can remember them, and B, you can call upon them in those times when we get to the process a little later on. So for me, and honestly, this was a very easy conflict to parboil down the intellectual sound bites. And I have to say, one of the great things for me in this conflict was how quickly I did it and what happened after I stopped and did it. And so my intellectual sound bites were, she's making all kinds of assumptions and she's not communicating very well. And for a brief time, my intellect went to, she never called me back to confirm. She assumed that I did this and that, but quickly, those 2 sound bites helped guide me to the next step. And then my emotion was irritation, anger, confusion, frustration, impatience. For those of you who are doing this, when you're trying to identify the emotion of it, don't go into the reasons why you think that you feel this. That's an intellectual activity. We are looking just to identify and isolate the emotion around this conflict. So they should be 1-word answers. Frustration, irritation, confusion, anger. So Robin, with these 2, what how did you get to your intellectual sound bites?